Good morning, everyone. Today I am in New Hope, Pennsylvania on a very rainy Saturday morning. I'm going to walk through New Hope a little bit, but today's focus is not going to be specifically on New Hope. It's going to be more on the Delaware State Canal Park in New Hope. And when I came out, I didn't realize it was going to be like this. It's like pretty much pouring rain. So we're going to see what we can see. Not sure how long I'm going to last today. All right, so we're here. This would be the parking area for the Delaware Canal State Park in New Hope. And kind of crazy, but we're the only people here. Don't you like how I'm referring to myself as people? But you're with me, right? So we are people. All right. We are going to check this out. We do have a storyboard, which is always nice. So this is Lock 11 of the Delaware Canal State Park. And we've seen this in some of the other videos I've made, but this, I guess, is the map of the entire canal. So this is a good picture, though. I know we've seen this in other videos, but this is a very good picture of one of the canal boats making its way through the canal. And if you look closely, we have a mule here. We have a couple mules here with a man, I guess, guiding them. Another nice picture here. I don't believe we've seen this one before, but it talks about hardworking mules pulled canal boats as far as 3,000 miles each season as they plodded up and down the towpaths. Let's get a little visual here. Oh God, this is one of the best ones I've ever seen. This is amazing. This is in such good shape. You can actually see the gates. Now, unfortunately, we are not going to be able to get down there. It's full of water anyways. I don't think I'd go down there, but I want to get as close a look as possible. Just look at these gates, how huge they are. Oh God, it's really hard to give perspective from up here, but these are, and I know I overestimate sometimes, but these are definitely 20 feet, at least 20 feet, these walls. Not sure if that's the original stonework over there. I'm kind of thinking it is. And then we have the concrete walls here. And as we head over to the other side, couple bolts, huge bolts still in here. Maybe that's where they would tie up the mules. Maybe yes. Probably no, because that's the towpath on that side, which we're going to get over there as well. So this is kind of cool. I don't think this is the lock tender's house. I sort of believe that is probably the lock tender's house. But this might have been, I don't know what I'm trying to say, maybe where they would operate the gate. One of the main drop-offs, because you see the water here, and then it's got to be at least a 20-foot drop-off down there. So cool how these canals operated. And look at this tree. This tree truly is huge. Look at all the vines all over it. Now I'm thinking this might be poison ivy, so I'm not going to touch that. I learned that from one of my other videos where some people pointed out that I was touching poison ivy. But that tree is huge. That has been here a long time. Quite possibly when the canal was still in operation. So to that point, the canal was in operation up until 1932, 1828 to 1932. So the Delaware Canal was in operation longer than most of the canals, or at least most of the other canals I've explored. 1932, now I want to say that's not that long ago, but as far as canals go, it's really not that long ago. I think the Schuylkill Canal was done by maybe like 1919 or something. The anthracite coal mined in the north fueled America's Industrial Revolution. And much of that anthracite coal was moved from, I guess, Easton, which I believe is the beginning of the canal, all the way down to Philadelphia. And then you might remember I did a video of, God, I forget the number, Pier 18, I think it is, but it's more commonly known as Graffiti Pier in Philadelphia. And there was a rail line on the top of the pier, which was primarily for anthracite coal to be loaded onto ships and sent to Europe. A lot of history in Pennsylvania. And more I realize when I go on these little adventures, so much connects. All right, so we are going to get on the official towpath. This is kind of cool. Where you would wipe your boots, or in my case, my running shoes, before entering. And what was this place? That I am not sure. How cool is it that we have this place to ourselves today? I'm really quite surprised. I'm actually quite surprised because New Hope is a very popular tourist destination. So just thinking out loud, maybe this was, I don't know, maybe the gears were housed in here. And down there, we were looking at before, that's absolutely one of the locks, the gates. But right here, probably, you have, you know, where the water's falling, but then this appears to be a gate on top of that, which probably, I don't know, maybe that let the water through. So I'm thinking maybe there's some mechanics in there. I'm going to try to peek through that window when we get back on the other side. And this was the lock tender's house. And I know that you can take tours in there, but it's not open. And hopefully you can see in there. Just a peek into the past. All right, and this just talks a little bit about the boat building. So I guess there were specific specifications. The boat had to be 87.5 feet long and 10.5 feet wide. The boats carried up to 100 tons of cargo. Wow. That's crazy, right? And here we have this lock tender dude. I know I've talked about this in other videos too. That was not an easy job. It seems like it would be a pretty cool job. You just live in a house and you know, whatever. But a lot of times there were arguments along the canal. There were rules established in 1833 that allowed light unloaded boat the right of way when two boats met. Boats approached each other, difficulties often arose. Fights often began when a faster boat could not pass a slower boat. They made money by the load, and time was money. And I believe we've seen some of these pictures. So this guy, right, I mean, he's operating the canal boat, and I'm thinking, maybe his family lived on the boat with him. Just walking along the towpath. Really nice place to go for a walk, or a run, or a bike ride. So what was this for? Now, I don't know this for sure, but I'm thinking this might be where, I was going to say where the mules were housed. It's not a lot of space, but maybe this is where they would feed them, or they would rest, or quite possibly, maybe this is where they would be housed at night. Not sure. But it definitely looks like it had something to do with the mules. So just as we're walking along here through puddles, the Delaware Canal was completed in the 1830s, and it was originally built to transport coal, lumber, and other goods between Easton and Bristol. Spanning 60 miles along the Delaware River, but New Hope was certainly one of the main towns. So this is like the third video I've done along this canal, maybe even the fourth. So I've done videos along this canal before, and every time I say the same thing. I would love to ride a bike the entire 60 miles. So maybe that's something I have to put on my bucket list. Whoa, check this out. What is this along the canal? So this might be somebody's property. New Hope's kind of cool like that. Like, there's just a lot of history, historic structures, and then somebody like lives there. But I just thought this was cool. This, I don't know, I guess it's just a gate, but it's probably somebody's property. So we're not going to disturb them. How cool would it be to live along this canal? So I just passed a couple. They were walking their dog. I have to tell you, they weren't very friendly. Most of the times in my travels, everybody's so friendly, but these two are a little snooty. A little snooty. I hope they're watching the video. All right, so here's another one of those Camelback Bridges, and these are all along the Delaware Canal. So the more I'm thinking about those snooty people, I'm thinking that quite possibly they live along the canal, and maybe it annoys them when they just see people enjoying the canal. But you know what? You know what? I'm not gonna say it. People like that just, let's just say they're not my kind of people. Beautiful things like this should be enjoyed by the public, not just people who have a lot of money. I'll leave it at that. So this almost appears to be another, I want to say lock. Something going on. It does amaze me how they moved such huge amounts of cargo down these canals. They moved slow. I believe I was mentioning in my last video in Manayunk, the Schuylkill Canal. It took 6 days. 6 days to get from Philadelphia to Pottstown, either Pottstown or Pottsville. I believe Pottstown. And that's just crazy. Okay, not sure what exact. Oh, wow. Okay, so that's cool. So we still have this gear in place. I want to try to get a view of the front of this without falling into the canal. So I'm assuming that would pull up a gate, and then we have some sort of a spillway over here. This leads to the Delaware, so maybe the water would come in through here. I guess you just have to have a lot of these little channels to feed the canal. But you can see how the canal narrows at this spot. So right, we have very wide here. Maybe you could fit 2 canal boats, and then this is where the problem would come in when one canal boat had to wait for the other canal boat. Never sure what to refer to this as, moss. I'm not really sure, but you can hear a frog somewhere over there. But this is actually quite pretty, this bright green. It almost looks like a floor, right? Like you could walk right across that. You can't, but it kind of looks like you could. You know, when I'm making these videos, I try not to feel like insecure, because like I'm so close to people's homes. So I'm thinking they can definitely hear me, especially with my big mouth. And it is early in the morning, but trying not to be too loud. Another one of these Camelback Bridges. Not sure how many of them there are along the canal. Some beautiful stonework over there, not sure. I'm gonna guess it's original, right? I mean, I would think. This kind of looks like it's pretty much intact, but I could be wrong. So I don't know if you can see it, but there's like crumbling rock over there. So I guess that's the remains. This obviously at one time was a wall. You don't see the wall right here, but then the wall does pick up again over here. Hopefully you can see that. But on this side, it's concrete. How cool is this place? Now I'm thinking this is probably a restaurant or a bar. Yes, I need to spend more time in New Hope. It truly is one of the most beautiful areas of Pennsylvania. Oh my God, what do we got going on here? Canadian Geese City. I don't even know if they're gonna let me pass here without biting me. Look at all the Canadian geese under here. Crazy. Look at this guy watching me. So I know I've mentioned this in videos before, but I believe I probably cut it out. So I will mention it again. I am not going to walk under that. And I'm going to tell you why. I was actually bit by a Canadian goose. God, it had to be like 25, 26 years ago. I was actually walking down Pennypack Park with my two youngest daughters, and they were probably, I don't know, 6 and 4. And I guess we were just kind of feeding the geese and walking over close to the geese. And one of them, I guess Papa Goose, just like put his head down, lifted his wings, and it just charged right at me. And I had shorts on. It bit my leg. I mean, you know, it hurt. I mean, it didn't cause a huge issue, but anyway, so I don't think that I am going to walk under that bridge. Actually, we're kind of walking away from the main part of the New Hope Canal, and there's a lot that we did not look at yet. So I'm going to head back that direction and see what we can see. We just saw that chair in the water, so somebody must have flipped the chair over the bridge. So we're lucking out. The rain pretty much stopped. It was raining pretty hard when I came out. All right, so we made it back to where we parked, and now I want to cross over and check out what's going on inside there. So there's some of the gears and mechanics. I'm not sure how all that worked, but you can see, I guess you would call that a sprocket, right? Maybe something was attached here and it would turn. And then that would in turn open these huge gates. All right, so before I cross back over and check that out, we must say hello to Boomer. Boomer is pretty much the unofficial mascot of New Hope. And supposedly, Boomer is half dinosaur, half dog. So I don't know, you guys take a look. Let me know what you think. Half dinosaur, half dog, huh? I would say the face, right? The face kind of resembles a wolf, maybe? Some sort of dog with a crazy little snout. And then it kind of has a tail that you would see in a dinosaur. And as I'm capturing this wonderful video, I just realized I better be careful. I'm right on the edge of the canal. This is all grown over. So Boomer was created by a local artist, Dana Stewart. Crafted Boomer from welded sheet steel, drawing inspiration from museum dinosaur skeletons. I kind of like Boomer. So initially, Boomer was part of the 2003 New Hope Annual Outdoor Sculpture Show, but Boomer struck such a chord with locals that Boomer soon became a permanent fixture beside the Delaware Canal. And Boomer, as I mentioned before, is sort of the unofficial mascot of New Hope. I kind of like the idea of a town having a mascot. Maybe it's something more towns should consider. Kind of something to maybe bring people together. And God knows, anything we can use to bring people together right now would be helpful. Another picture. There you see the wider area where 2 canal boats could fit. Here you can pause it, but it basically just talks about the fact that a concrete dam replaced Lock 10 in 1964. So I guess where Lock 10 was, there's now a dam, but Lock 9 and 8 still exist beyond the dam. So we're not going to get there today, but I kind of want to visit all the locks, as many of them as possible. Because as I've said in other videos, the Delaware Canal is in pretty good shape. It kind of gives you a nice look into the past. All right, so we're gonna look inside this window and see if we can see anything inside here. So it just appears to be used for storage at this point. Not sure if you can see it, but if you can look over into the right-hand corner, you kind of can see some remnants of some type of gear. And it looks like it had I want to say there was like kind of a wood stove in there, maybe in the middle. I don't know if any of that's coming out on the camera, but it's pretty cool. I'm thinking somebody worked in there maybe 8 to 10 hours a day. All right, so from in front of Boomer, I think I'm just gonna end my video here. Thank you so much for joining me. If you could give it a like, that helps me out. We'd much appreciate it. And if you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. Thank you so much, and you have a great weekend. Take care, everybody.